There was a point where I got down to, about $1,000 in my bank account, and I had bills to pay watching these people give each other fake awards. The green award, the most checking accounts open, the most auto loans referred. And I'm just like, and I got that feeling in my stomach where I don't want to be here. I don't want to be this person sitting here getting this made up award that the bank's giving to them. And it really is hit the pit of me. And from that point on, that's whenever I decided to get my license and go off on my own.
Well, welcome to the Human Expedition, Jeff. So, we're sitting here with Jeff Aguilera. Did I say that right?
Yep.
All right, just making sure. Gold Standard Mortgage, but we're going to go through kind of the story. We're going to end up there, but let's go back to your childhood. Like, what was your earliest childhood dream of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Wow, that's a pretty intense question, right? I haven't thought about that in a while. It was interesting. We were eating dinner at Sorrell's last night, and right there in White Lane and Gosford. When I was younger, probably about 8 or 9, we got in a really bad accident. We got T-boned right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A little flashback moment.
I know. We were talking about it. It was back in the probably 90s, early 90s.
Okay.
And my mom had my brother and sister just in the front seat of the car. Yeah, so we were
pre-seat belts, right?
I think you needed seatbelts back then.
Okay. When I grew up, you didn't. We rode around in the back of pickup trucks.
Yeah. We used to go to the back pickup truck too. But I don't know. I talk with my aunt, and she always says that I always had that entrepreneur spirit. Looking at different ways to make extra money. And it comes from I think just my grandpa. He came over here as an immigrant from Mexico, and he joined the army, got his citizenship.
Okay.
He was in the Korean War, Korean conflict actually, because it's not a war.
It was never declared.
It's a Korean conflict. But whenever he got out, he opened a series of a chain of Mexican restaurants, and I grew up. My parents were pretty young. My mom, I think, was like 15 or 16 when she had me. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents in the restaurant, in the business, going to LA to get, because they ended up, they started the first restaurant in Bakersfield and then moved on to Arvin and then eventually ended up in Taft. But we'd go back and forth, to the stores to get, to Los Angeles to get the supplies, the food, the rice, the beans, whatever. I remember just the big old buckets of mayonnaise that he'd get. I'm like, dude, this is a Mexican restaurant. Why do you need so much mayonnaise?
What's this mayonnaise going to? Flavor. It's flavor.
Yeah. So that was probably for their house because they had like 7 kids.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I think it goes back realistically to my grandfather.
Okay.
Seeing him going through. Well, not going through because by the time I was born, the restaurant was already established, but operating the business, right from opening to closing. Yeah. And then from there, my dad, he went to school in Los Angeles to become a chiropractor, and he opened up his business in the, I want to say in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Right
there in the Town and Country Shopping Center. He was there for like 30 years.
Okay, cool.
And his practice is pretty successful, and he's still doing it. So,
so it's another entrepreneurial example,
right?
Like you saw Grandpa do it, and then your dad did it,
right?
Okay,
right. And then I grew up with my dad doing his business, and then after school going to the office, basically staying there from 3 until 6 whenever he would go home. Watching the bookkeeping, just all the everyday stuff. And then from there, I was just when I grew up, I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur because I'm not a good employee at all. Like
that's the realization that I came to too, man. I'm a terrible employee.
Yeah, like would you hire yourself right now, no. Tim? I don't think I would. But it's funny that we say that because we're the ones that are answering the phone calls from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, right? Working weekends. So it's like, yeah, we probably would be great employees, but if we're going to work so hard, why not work for ourselves?
Right. So what were the core values that you picked up from your grandpa and your dad? Like,
yeah, just the determination, right, and the going back and forth of sometimes it's not a good week, sometimes it's not a good month,
right.
remember my dad telling me one time, we have the money right now, let's spend it because one day it might not be here.
Right.
Yeah, and then he ended up, he was with a, pretty reputable accountant, and they did something wrong. It wasn't my dad's fault, but it was something tax-wise, and, that really hurt his business for about 8 years.
Oh,
so,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those little stumbles can really...
Yeah, it was a big stumble.
So, what like were your fears and concerns as a kid? Like, was there anything that like you were worried about? Like,
No, not really worried. I remember in high school thinking that, if I could just make 50,000, and I know 50,000 is still a lot, right? The average area median income is like 75 in Bakersfield. Right. But still, out of high school or in high school, I'm thinking, okay, if I can make $50,000 a year, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. Right. And then you get to
numbers change. We talk about how the numbers change.
Right. Yeah. You get the apartment, then you get the car, and next thing you know, it's like, oh wow, that's like I can barely afford Taco Bell right now. That's not enough.
Yeah, that's what Mo was talking about. He was like, there needs to be a course on adulting when reality really hits. In your late 20s or early 30s, it's like, where'd all these bills come from?
Right. And that's something that they really don't teach people in school. They don't teach people how. I remember I got my first credit card. I thought, okay, I was in San Diego for a spring break. I was 17, got a credit card. I was like, man, I got $300 to spend. I didn't know how to pay that back.
Yeah. What do you mean you got to pay it back?
Yeah.
One of my friends tells a story that I think it was his sister or something was in college, and the parents called and said, hey, you're out of money in your account. And she said, well, that's not possible. I still have all these checks in this checkbook. It's like, no. Yeah, there has to be something on the other end of this thing.
Yeah, no, those are bad checks. Right?
Yeah, those turn into rubber really quick.
Yeah. So
no real concerns. It wasn't like, it seems like, well, but your grandpa was already established.
Right.
So, but being the kid, what was it like being the kid of an entrepreneur? Like just seeing that much work?
Well, you still see it now, and I think it kind of comes back on me where I have to be conscious about it because I still have younger kids too. I have kids, from, my youngest is 6 years old, right? We're in soccer, we're in baseball. Right. My older kids were in football, basketball. I think any type of ball sport my kids are playing right now. And so growing up,
You have 4?
Yeah, I have 4 kids. Yeah. We have 4 kids. But growing up, my dad made his schedule, right? So Tuesdays he had off, and then Tuesday mornings he was off, and I thought that was the coolest thing. Right. And then Thursdays he took completely off. But the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes he's there from 8 in the morning until 8 at night. Yeah,
right? Yeah, however long it takes, right?
Yeah. So a lot of missed sports, and with him, being a single, doctor at his office, right? He really could not leave. So anytime he takes off, there's not revenue coming in. Right. So the way the business I got into, it's like, okay, I want to have the flexibility to leave if I need to. So if I need to leave at 4, I can rearrange my schedule and leave at 4 if I need
to go to the kids' stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's an important balance piece as you go through the whole, because it's easy to, I think it was when I was talking to Jim Damien, it was like, it's easy to do that one extra job, that one extra deal, but then not show up at home until 8, 9. The kids are going to bed, and it's like too many of those, and it's like, oh wait, who's that?
Yeah, I always go back to that movie with Adam Sandler. You remember that movie? It's called Click, where he gets the remote and he just has to get through his project, right? So he gets a special remote and it speeds him through. So next thing he knows, it's a second, and a whole day goes by and he's done. Right. And he takes advantage of it, and he keeps clicking and clicking and clicking. Next thing he knows, he's 80 years old and his kids are all grown up and everybody hates him.
Yeah. Nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we're fine. It's kind of like that Cats in the Cradle, right? Like, no, I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't need to come see you. I'm fine. So what about, did you have a lot of support as a kid from your parents and grandparents, or?
Yeah, no, the family is totally supportive. My mom's still my biggest fan.
Okay, cool.
We just made that commercial last week, and she's out there posting it, and she's like, "Oh, my friends are commenting on this video," and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool, man. Thank you."
That's awesome. Good. So then, part of life is overcoming obstacles, right? So, was there a time in high school or even in college where you just felt stuck? Like,
oh no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, coming out of school, going to college and, trying to make extra money. And, I was never really the best student at all.
Yeah.
Like, I just felt like school wasn't challenging for me. And so I really didn't.
Yeah, we had that conversation. It's easy.
It's easy just to like not do anything and, but yeah, of course. So whenever I first started in the mortgage industry back in 2010, I was getting, it's called the draw, right? Where they give you a little bit of money and they take it back on the deals that you make. So it's not really a salary. You have to pay it back. And so if you're not, closing transactions, you're going to be in the red, negative, and they'll let you go after 3 months. And so, my first couple of years in the business, it was one of those things where, it was, the income was not there. And then I my wife was like, hey, maybe we should look at getting a regular job. I'm like, no, look at these guys around me. Like this guy has all this cool stuff. You have to go through the grind in the beginning to get the reward at the end.
Right.
And so yeah, she saw that. I mean, I convinced her to see that vision, and I'm just looking at like, who's going to go pay me $50,000 a year? And this is back in 2010.
Right.
Where am I going to make? I can go in the oil fields. Yeah, I could do that.
Right.
But I don't want to.
Right. Yeah, that's not what I want to do. So, I always call it spinning my wheels, right? There's times in life where it's like, I'm just spinning my wheel. I know that there's something better coming, but right now, I just can't seem to get any momentum going.
Yeah. So,
what about any setbacks or failures where you're like, so it sounds like you were close to it, right? Because she's like, is this really going to work?
No, and I bring that up. I bring that up whenever we have good years. I'm like, hey, I'm glad, but I didn't go get a job.
Right. Because I'd still be making.
Yeah, we'd still be in the same spot.
Yeah, wouldn't have gotten any better. So what about like overcoming adversity? Like you hit those points. What was your strategy of like just work harder, or did you have some strategy of here's what I need to do to move forward in this career?
Well, when I started out at Bank of America Home Loans, right? And I started as an assistant. I was, the person in charge of stocking the loan officer's fridge with sodas. I remember one time the guy came in. He's like, "Hey, I got a couple soda cases. Can you go, put them in my fridge?" I'm like, "Sure, sure."
As long as I'm getting paid, yeah.
Just teach me what you know, and I'll do it. And so it was just a real fun experience at Bank of America. I came on right whenever the CFPB came out, and right as the mortgage collapse happened, right when the federal government stepped in and started regulating the mortgage industry and gave everybody licenses. So we all have these identifiers now called NMLS IDs. So when I was at the bank, within like 6 months, everybody left. And they basically left me there by myself. So I was in there for about a year as an assistant to nobody.
Wow.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty cool. But during that year,
kind of walking around, hello.
No, it was like that. It was like a 8,000 square foot building which had underwriters, processors, loan officers, and then instantly went to nobody. And so I stuck it out there and took the time to learn the business.
So how does that? I mean, through that all, it sounds like the inner battle of like self-doubt or imposter syndrome or fear of failure. Oh
no, imposter syndrome, totally. Because you're at the bank and you're dealing with high wealth clientele because people that bank at the bank really want to be there, and so I'm just working with these doctors, lawyers, and it's funny too because whenever I was at the bank, I was dealing with, at that time, like in 2013, 14, 15, with a higher net worth because the bank, they did lower income homes, but they really didn't do them well.
Right.
So I felt like they were focusing on the higher net worth clientele. Right. And so I'm working with these doctors, lawyers, and I'm just like, don't you have a guy for this? Like, why are you using me?
Why are you listening to me?
Yeah, like I don't even. I remember wearing my first suit when they put me into one of the branches, right, to do mortgages out of there, and I still had like the tags and stuff because I never wore a suit before. Yeah, and I'm just like, who's your mortgage guy? But it did teach me how to be self-sufficient. It taught me how to find answers for myself. And, I was able to, by the time I left Bank of America, I was managing Central California then. So I had Fresno all the way down to Bakersfield and the Central Coast also. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in
That's
charge.
a big territory.
Right. And I was like 27 years old. And I'm also thinking, like, is there somebody else like older that's more qualified for this,
Yeah. I'm not supposed to be doing this. Why are you around? So was there ever time so that had to have been quick growth. So there was never like hey, I don't want to do this. Was it just growing so fast that you were like,
It really, I mean, there's times whenever, you're new, and then, when you're working at the bank, you're dealing with their clientele. So the business is coming in to you. But whenever you have to work with real estate agents, you find out real fast that you're really not as good as you thought you were.
Okay.
Because whenever you step outside of the bank's box, it's a completely different, it really is. It's a dog eat dog world. And the banks, I think, still have a bad reputation on getting loans closed on time. And so I had to develop a way to get these realtors to like and trust me, right? To get them to know, hey, it's not just bank doing the loan. I'm doing the loan. I'm the person that's going to be walking you through the process and making sure that we can get the deal done on time.
Right.
And so I had to call, again, I was a rookie dealing with like the highest real estate agents in town, but it gave me a lot of opportunity and a lot of interaction. I really am thankful and blessed that I had that opportunity to start there.
Right. During that time, was there any foresight of where that would end up? Was there any thought in your mind like, oh, this could eventually be beneficial? Or was it just, hey, I got it, it's part of the job?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like self-abuse. I just stuck it out.
Self-flagellation, yeah.
Right. So I stuck it out, and then, it comes to a point to where you really feel you're doing the best you can. And it really was almost like a cult whenever you're working inside the bank, because you get to go to all the different branches in town and all over, Central California, and meet different people.
Right.
But whenever you step, when you step outside the box, it's a completely different world. And in 2015, I was ready to step outside of that box.
Okay. So that was because all entrepreneurs eventually hit that where you decide to carve your own path, right? Like, all right, I'm ready to go do this. So what was that pivot when you were like, nope, it's time to...
Yeah, no, I can totally remember it. We were down, so we would have, the bank, there's, you have a lot of meetings. Mm-hmm. So we'd have to go to Chattanooga. I'd be in LA once a week going to manager meetings. And then they had one in Bakersfield at the downtown branch. They had this huge room in the back, and they had people from all over California meeting there. And I remember sitting in my suit, and I was, I think I was probably the youngest person in there at the time, and just watching these people give each other fake awards. The green award, the most checking accounts open, the most auto loans referred. And I'm just like, and I got that feeling in my stomach where I don't want to be here.
Right.
I don't want to be this person sitting here getting this made up award that the bank's giving to them.
Right.
And it really is hit the pit of me. And from that point on, that's whenever I decided to get my license and go off on my own.
Okay. So during that, what was the reaction though? Like from your family? Well, you already had a couple of entrepreneurs, like, yeah, cool, right? But
right.
Like wife and other family members, were they like, are you crazy? Like,
yeah, no, the wife, she's totally conservative. Even right now because we do, we invest in real estate, and we do, invest in different businesses too. And I just stopped telling her.
Hopefully she doesn't watch this.
Because she's super conservative, right?
Right. It's a limited knowledge just sometimes.
I don't think it's that, because she grew up in a household where her dad had a good job, worked for Shell, made great money for the family, provided, and had the stability of a paycheck every single week. Right. Where we don't. Right. Some weeks we don't.
Well, that's the rich dad, poor dad, right?
Right.
I was raised in that kind of family where it's like, no, when you're done, go get a job, hopefully it has a good pension, and you'll be taken care of.
Right.
So when I went out, it was like, you're doing what?
Yeah.
Like you're giving up a paycheck?
I mean, yeah. you had to have gone through that situation too, coming out of school and,
Yeah, I was making, it was funny because, when I became a PT, I was making like more money, like $70,000 a year. I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought I'd make this much money. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to not do this anymore. I'm going to see if I can do it.
Right.
and just hope that I was young enough that if I failed, that I could pay back all the debt that I was incurring. So, but then, did the self-doubt show back up again, or the imposters as you're launching? Was it just you?
Well, I talked to my guys. I have 22 people that work underneath me right now doing mortgages all throughout California.
Right.
And you do go through imposter syndrome because you go through whenever you start making a decent amount of money, sometimes you're making in a month you can make what some people make in a year, right? In certain situations.
Right.
And whenever I have people that did not come for money and feel like they should not be there, and they have to act differently, I go through that imposter syndrome talk with them. You deserve to be here.
Right.
You've done the work, you've earned it.
Yeah, there is a weird thing though, and I think a lot of that goes back to our childhood of what you were taught about money, right?
Right.
Is money the root of all evil, or is it going to change you? Or, I think that gets in people's heads. Like, oh man, I'm kind of feeling guilty that.
And it is guilty, right? Yeah.
You see some checks, it's like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, but those checks wouldn't exist if you weren't out there doing the work.
Right. Exactly. So, how do you? Because you already brought up risk taking. So you're a risk taker.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, how do you approach it though? Like, because everybody thinks entrepreneurs are just like crazy risk takers, but most of the time it's like a mitigated risk, right? It's like an algorithm that you run that's like, okay, I think this is good.
Right.
That doesn't mean everything's successful, but.
Well, just starting the risk of opening the branch,
Right.
that was a risk. That's whenever interest rates spiked up. We were almost at 8% whenever I opened the doors to this one. And it just, whenever I'm looking at real estate properties to buy, to add to our portfolio or to rehabilitate and resell, I'm looking at one right now where the whole, I was last week when it was raining, the roof was raining also inside the house. Some people will look at,
Whoops.
the kitchen needs to be completely remodeled, completely redesigned and, blow out some wall. And I can see that. Mm-hmm. So in real estate, I really feel comfortable when I'm looking at a property that I can see the potential and I know what my limitations are. Right. Then I jump into different things. We started a home inspection company a few years ago, and that was like bought all the equipment, got all the signs, got the LLC. And,
yeah, let's go.
That was a failure.
Right.
But, I learned. And
yeah, it's one of the things Ganesh was talking about when we were talking about entrepreneurship is sometimes the worst thing that happens is early success. And then you think that no matter what you touch, it's going to turn to gold,
right?
Until it doesn't.
Yeah,
and we're all gonna hit that, or you're not pushing.
Right. No, that's I went through that because I started as an assistant at the bank, worked my way up to be a loan officer where I was able to do loans. In my first year, I did, and this is in 2012, I did close to 125 deals for about $24 million. And I was like, man, this is easy. But I've never backed down from that point. I've always was able to excel in the companies that I worked for in the past. I became the top producer at every single company in mortgages. And so that's why whenever I'm doing these other business ventures, I now need to pull back a little bit on industries I don't know about. So Bitcoin came out, I got into that, and I lost a lot of money because I didn't know what I was doing.
It's like that crypto stuff that Dave talks about.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to.
So you get the business going. When was the turning point where you're like, oh, wait a minute, this not only is this good, but we can grow this thing?
So when I became independent in 2015, 16, you had to go get your California license, and that test is horrible. I still have people that want to get in the business now, and it has like a 70% fail rate.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez.
You take it. You take it once and you fail it, right? You have to wait 30 days for the next one. Right. You can do that 3 times. So that's 3 months that you possibly are waiting. And if you fail on the third time, you have to wait 6 months. Oh, so usually by the third time, people are just like, hey, I can't, I got to go get a job. And I get it,
Right.
But I opened up a branch. So the first branch I opened up independently was a retail branch, meaning that we're owned by one company, right? So we can only use the products that bank sold. And so we became really successful, had that for about 3 years, grew it to, and at that point, I don't think it was the right model because I only grew that to about 5 people. And then it just became a struggle with the bank whenever interest rates started going up higher, became uncompetitive. The owner of the company was basically on his way out, had the son in charge of it. And the son really, I think the dad was the entrepreneur because he used to sit on the streets, he said, back in the 70s with flyers asking people to buy a mortgage. So
right.
I'm like, okay, you're my people. I can work with you. But when the son started taking over, it's more of like, hey, he grew up in wealth, and so he really didn't understand how to.
Yeah, the grind of.
Right. When I asked him, I said, hey, our rates are kind of high. Can we look for other investors to add to our wire? And he said, oh man, that's going to take a lot of work. I'm like, and once I heard that, I knew I was at the wrong place at that point.
Yeah, hard work.
So then Gold Standard, when I opened Gold Standard, right, it was just, okay, I'm going to get this little office, and it was just a little office just down the street, right there on Coffee.
Right.
And I was, I had the intention of, okay, just my own business can pay for this rent, can pay for the electricity.
Yeah, just you as a solopreneur.
Right, me
Okay.
myself. So I started with me, and then 2 guys came over with me, my first 2 hires. And then from there, I've never really had to recruit because we've done, I think, such a good job on social media and able to promote like a good brand.
Different way, yeah.
Where I have, everybody that's came from the first 2 gave me a call first. So they called me to come on, and then we showed them what we're doing, and now we're up to 22 people.
So did you have the foresight going into that? Because I hadn't heard of it until you were talking about the model of having various people you can go to, right?
Right.
And the houses I bought, it was just like, it's like going and buying a car, right? Like, okay, we'll give you this credit.
I just bought you. It's the worst experience. Man, I hate buying cars.
Cars too. It's such a nightmare. The paperwork is just like, oh, you got to be
it's like,
kidding
hey,
me.
I want this. Let me out in like 20 minutes. Why do I have to be here all day?
Right. Yeah, and play the game. But I think one of the things from my view that makes you guys unique is that ability to see where you can get the money at the cheapest interest rate, right? Instead of being tied just to one.
Right. And it's not the cheapest interest rate that we want to talk about, right? It's just that if you put us up against the majority of the mortgage companies in Bakersfield, we're going to win every time. And I think that's what these other people were seeing, that, okay, I'm losing business to this guy, Jeff, and this Gold Standard company. So why don't I figure out what they're doing? And we get a lot of that. I think, well, I know now we became the largest brokerage in Bakersfield in production and funding. And within 2.5 years, this is going to be our 3rd year in March. So, but whenever you climb that mountain, right, people really don't see you coming up. Right. They don't really think of you as, a competitor. And once you start getting to a certain level, man, people's true colors come out. The other companies, we've had companies, we put on an event a couple months ago, an appraisal event down at the Bakersfield Chamber of Commerce, and we had these other companies calling the appraisers and say, hey, do me a favor and don't show up to their event.
Really?
And be their guy. Yeah.
Trying to blackball?
It's weird. It's really.
Well, it's that classic challenger brand, right? You start challenging the status quo, and they usually don't pay attention to you until you start taking business, and then they come at you.
Right.
Stop.
Well, it's market disruption.
Yeah.
We're doing things differently. Right. It's like we're not owned by a big corporate company where we're micromanaging and we have to hit numbers. It's more of a natural flow of business for us, right? Okay, if the way that I work my business, if my loan officers bring something to me and we need to pivot or we need to go a different direction, we're going to seriously look at it, and if it makes sense, we're just going to do it.
Right. Yeah. There's nobody else to ask, right?
No.
It's you.
Right.
Like, hey, what do you think? All right, go this way.
Yeah, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, right now we're doing some radio ads. I mean, I think it's pretty cool, but
right. see what the ROI is on
there's none. There's none at all.
So through that growth, right? The other thing is our inner compass of handling success, and so how do you maintain that inner compass that you're going the right direction, and not getting talked into deals that maybe go against.
Well, I got hooked up with you, man. I talk with you at least twice a month. We break down my business.
Go through it all.
Yeah, and that's why I like having you on my side, right? Because when we meet, we go over some challenges and some obstacles, right? And then we figure out. I get advice from. I'm never going to be good enough not to ask somebody for advice. Right. Obviously, the more successful the person, the more I'm willing to absorb and take take what they're saying and do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things and that goes back to the Rich Dad Poor Dad too. It's The Millionaire Next Door was a book I read, and it said the high intellectual people are the ones that don't ask. They're supposed to be smart enough to figure it out themselves. The grinders, and I had that approach when I started my business. I was like, all right, I'm a good therapist, but I don't know the first thing about running a business. So I'm going to ask. And, maybe it's a stupid question, but I need to find out.
Yeah. No question's stupid. If you've never been there, how are you going to know how to get there?
Exactly. And I think that's just the difference of asking and being curious and asking, like, all right, how's that work?
Right.
How does this actually work? And knowing when to back away, though, like Bitcoin, like, all right, I don't understand this at all.
Yeah, we'll just leave that on the I sold at 27,000 ounces. I can say, I don't know.
So you already talked about balancing, right? Like with your kids and being at sports. And it does work. You have to control it, though, right? So is that something you constantly are thinking about? Like, hey, I need to be more with the kids, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've coached my kids' tackle football team for about 4 years, and then we got into baseball with my younger son's team, and I coached that team. This is like last year was the first year I didn't coach his baseball team, because at a certain point, once they get to like 10, 11, I'm useless. Let's get somebody in there that knows, like, okay, I can tell you how to like throw straight and like maybe hit a ball, but once it comes to skill, like I'm
strategy and
right.
Yeah.
So I'm out here like calling all my baseball players, hey, come over here and practice, help us out a little bit, show this little kid how to pitch.
Right.
But no, it's just, you get to those practices, so you take time. You got to be there at 5, right? If you're being the coach, you want to be there early. And again, one of the things of balance is that you have people that on the business end need you right then. So even on vacation, I'm sure you get it too. When we're on vacation, I'm in the passenger seat, and if it's on a business day, my wife's driving. I'm over here just working away.
Yeah.
We've SeaWorld, Disneyland. You're on the phone all the time.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's part of like when people want to go into business for themselves, be an entrepreneur, there's that. That's one of the things you don't think about. Wait a minute. I own this thing all the time. Right. I wake up in the middle of the night going, oh, crap. I think it's one of the things Jim Damien was talking about. Is, how the hell is it payroll again? We just had it yesterday, but all of a sudden, it seems like every day is payroll day.
Yeah,
What are you talking about? We just paid.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And even when you have money in the bank, it's still that nervous. Did you ever hit that? Because I hit it. I don't remember what year it was, but payroll's coming and I need money to come in.
Of course. So,
the joys of entrepreneur. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I mean, whenever I opened this last company, like I said, the interest rates were very high. I was okay. I have my personal savings that I'm going to use to start this company. I have some credit cards that I can leverage if I need to. So at one point, I was leveraging everything on the credit cards, and then
with a nice interest rate.
And we blew through the savings, right? Because the first 6 months wasn't really the best, because you're starting, you're learning different things. You have to get familiarized, because now we're not just with one bank, we're with 100 banks. So we have to figure out which ones we like, which ones we don't like. Because some of these guys, they're called AEs for these banks that try to get us to use them. Man, they'll tell you I learned that real fast. They'll tell you they can do anything, and you get into a deal and they can't do anything they said. So then that puts you in a bad position to where, okay, this is a small town. This is Bakersfield. Like,
Yeah.
if we can't perform, we're not going to be around long.
Right.
So
Yeah, Bakersfield's like 1 degree of separation.
oh man,
It's-
oh no, worse than that.
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah, you mess up, people are gonna know.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting big, but we're still small, man. But so yeah, there was a point where I got down to about $1,000 in my bank account, and I had I had bills to pay. Right, at minimum, I had the lease
Right.
on the office building. I was like, okay.
And landlords are a little tricky
Yeah.
about
And then it was funny too, because I have a rental portfolio, in like 5 of my tenants. I think it was like 4 or 5 of them. 2 of them were moving out, and like 3 of them just stopped paying. So then I have all these mortgages I have to pay. And then I had a rehabilitation project, which took about, I think we're about $60,000 into it to get it to,
Right.
in shape to be able to sell. And so all of this happened. It was like 2022, I think,
Right.
like April,
Right.
March. And so
It's like
But I don't-
the world's collapsing.
the world's collapsing, right? And I don't have my dad's well off. My parents are divorced. My mom, she does her own thing. My dad does good enough for him, right? But I don't have anybody I can go to and say, hey, I need $15,000 like today.
There's not a big bank. Yeah.
There's not a big bank. And so, so then I just leveraged the cards more, right? But I was able to get through it. And that was really I think that was the bottom for me.
Right.
Right. And then from there, we've been able to sustain.
Well, that's like, I know, having gone through that multiple times, I think one of the hardest parts of that thing is not showing it. Right. Not letting your employees see that
No.
you're scared to death. Like,
No.
I don't know for sure that
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to pay you guys, but
Yeah.
walk in with a smile like, hey, everything's great.
Hey, you want to go lunch? Hoping the card's going to work whenever you're in.
Please.
Right. So yeah, it is. And you can't, I mean, it's like, realistically, like, Tim, when I ask you, how's your day going? Are you going to tell me how your day is really going?
I don't know. Every time it's like, oh,
Right.
everything's
right,
awesome.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Another day in paradise is my usual go-to.
right, because you don't want to show, especially your employees, that there's potentially a collapse coming. Right.
Yeah, iceberg straight ahead. But no, we're good. Just keep going.
Yeah.
We'll be all right.
Yeah.
I don't think the ship will totally sink. Oh,
No. I'm never afraid of it sinking. I'm just afraid of it kind of like running out of gas at some point.
Exactly.
But the good thing about that, you can fill it back up.
Right. Yeah, you take that approach. So how have you approached your personal growth through this whole thing?
So whenever I left the bank, because we were really insulated, right? Like I said, it's like a cult there. You feel like you're the best in the world, and But whenever you step out to the independent part, which I did in 2000, I think it was 2015 or 16, you learn fast that the things that you knew don't even work at all. You have to completely relearn a whole new trade. Even though you've been in this trade for 6 years, I had to completely relearn how to do it again. And so what I did is I took my 401k out because it's a commission-based business, so it's
Right.
not like we're getting salaries. So I took my 401k out and about coaching. I got a mortgage coach.
Okay.
And then I used the other part of it to get Zillow leads. I bought Zillow leads.
Okay.
But since then, I've consistently hired coaches
Right.
to help me. So I have, I still have a mortgage coach, and I consider you my business coach.
Right. Yeah, I think that takes that humility, though. But like you said, if you have the humility to be like, all right, I need to continue to learn because one thing about business is it throws curves at you all the time. Right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then
Or
you
who did what?
really? And then you got to sit back and be like, all right, let me figure this out. But the more of those you go through, I always call it building my tool bag, right? I've been through that. I know something similar.
Right.
Which is the cool part of now with coaching the groups is like, I've been through a lot of that. And it was one of the weird things when I started coaching was looking at other coaches, but a lot of them are never have been the entrepreneur. Like,
isn't that funny?
it is a weird deal.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you've never been up in the middle of the night like, oh, geez, if money doesn't come in tomorrow, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. But do you think about like this? Like, look at, I mean, who's a coach that's never played? I mean, you have people all around the wall.
Oh, a lot of them.
Right. But
especially not.
But just because that coach doesn't have the athletic abilities to play the sport he's coaching, right? Does that?
Yeah. Well, that's
do you think
actually,
some people have that.
yeah, I think it's actually, having been, coming up through professional baseball, that was the biggest shock to me was going to organizational meetings and listening to them go from back then rookie ball through AAA. Like, and it was all down to definite prospect, has a chance. And then the one that shocked me is organizational guy, which meant good guy. We like him. Doesn't have the actual athletic ability to make it to the major leagues. So those are the guys they dubbed. They would make them organizational guys. They were the guys that would plug in spots. But the guy never knew it. You're never going to the show.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
They're just filling you in.
Right.
But you got a good knowledge of the game. So those are the guys that became managers and coaches. Mm-hmm. Eventually it's like, all right. I think it was Wayne Gretzky that said we all get tapped on the shoulder at some point. Told you you're done.
When's that tap coming for you?
That I'm done? Well, I tap myself on the shoulder. I got to stop tapping myself on the shoulder.
Right.
Like, all right, you're no longer a therapist. You're going to be a CEO. Okay, you're not really a good CEO. So it's just creating new stuff. But I actually tap myself on the shoulder. I know when my skill sets, like I like to start stuff. I don't like to manage.
Right.
Because not only am I a horrible employee, I'm a horrible manager too.
Well, and I think that just comes from like the entrepreneur mindset, right? Because whenever in every day in your business, you're going to have to tap yourself because if something's going wrong, you can't just sit there and let that thing go wrong.
Right.
You got to get it fixed.
You got to find, if you can't fix it, you got to find who can fix it.
Right.
And as fast as possible because you can't let it fester.
Right.
The longer it festers, the bigger the infection gets. And it's like, okay. And I think that was a big mindset shift I had was when I stopped looking, I stopped looking at how to do stuff and started looking at who do I know that could fix this for me faster. Mm-hmm. And it's a really freeing thing, but it's also, you have to have the humility to go, yeah, it's not me. Like I can probably figure it out, but it isn't going to be very good.
Yeah.
So why don't I get somebody who could do it really well? So just that approach.
And I think that does help. Like you just can't there's like in your field, in my field, there's some great mortgage people. There's some great doctors, but they're not great business people.
Right.
Or they're not great at delegating.
Right.
They want to do everything on their own. And I think whenever you do that, you lose the opportunity to go forward.
Right. Yeah. Because you're going to hit capacity at some point.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter if you're even like your dad, right? You could be a great physical therapist, a great chiropractor, but at some point you can't take any more people.
No.
Your day's full. So I was reading something really interesting article the other day, and these guys stepped in it, but on social media they were posting that your therapy company might be failing because the people you're hiring. Like you're hiring too soon.
Yeah.
You think, oh, we're going to keep growing. I'm going to keep bringing these people in.
We go through our business all the time.
Right.
That's the hardest part is hiring.
When do you hire? And hire slow, fire fast, which also is a hard thing, right? The first time you actually have to fire somebody. And I learned that early, like when I was in professional ball, there was this, I think, were we here? Might have been the year before in rookie ball, but there was this guy on the team that, just was a pain. And the manager came to me and goes, hey, we're going to cut him. You want to tell him? I was like, yeah. But when it came time to sit there and tell the guy, all of a sudden my gut was like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
and tell them, hey, dude, you're done. Pack up your stuff. And and all of a sudden I was like, oh crap, this is this guy's dream that I just ended. Maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe, but it did prepare me later for, there's times where in business, it's, hey, you got to go.
And and the hard part is whenever you really like them as a person.
Right.
It's just that position that they're in at that point is not the best for them.
Right.
So what I like to do is okay, I try to identify, and man, I give people, I think, too many chances, because whenever someone's gone, they're like, no, you didn't. You didn't. And I was like, I had to. Like, I get to the point, and I need to, that's what I need to get better at, right? Not getting to the point where it's like, okay, it's festered and I have to now.
Right.
You know, I really need to identify it quickly and just get it done, because it's not fair to the person that's working, because they think, okay, this is the norm. It's okay now. Right. You know, this is how it's supposed to be done. But really, Yeah, I
think that's one of the hardest things is, and it's not, like you said, it's not necessarily that, oh, you're a bad person. Well, next month for the Tilt meeting, we're doing Good to Great. And I think that's still the classic is you got to have the right person on your bus, and they need to be in the right seat. So sometimes it's hey, this just isn't the right spot for you. Is there some place I can move you that's better? Or this just isn't, you could do better somewhere else. Like, right.
Yeah. Those ones I'm okay with, but the ones, the ones, I mean, everybody has value, right? So you get it. Yeah. If this isn't the right spot, let's find some, and we just had to do that. We just had to maneuver, and that person's way more happier doing that other job.
Yeah. Pivot and find their strengths, right? Instead of, hey, you're not really good at this. And I think that's part of knowing your people, right? Like knowing that I want my controller and my accounting person to be very detail oriented. I don't want them to be the fun loving person that doesn't.
No, that's
attention.
my job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll be the fun loving guy that goes out.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me exactly what the revenue is, what the expenses are,
right?
That kind of stuff. So I think it is like building your strengths. That's another part of good to great is, what do you do that's you do the best? And if the more we can find that in people, and there's times where it's just like, hey, if you're looking for something, this isn't the right place.
Yeah.
And I think now that you've gotten down the road a little bit, it's like easier to look at people coming in and being like, no, I think you would be a good fit for us, or I don't think this is the place for you.
Yeah, and that's something. Well, so as far as bringing people on to work at the company as a mortgage broker, I do that. I do vet them. I make sure that they're going to flow well, because again, this business is real. That's my person. You can't work with them. You know, it's really territorial. And so I make sure that if I'm bringing a mortgage broker over, that they're not going to be territorial to where they're fighting with my other loan officers because, you know, they're working at a property or they're working with a real estate office that's that person's territory.
This is my
right. And so those people, I mean, I've had 6 people over the past 2 years that I did not bring over. I wasn't going to be a good fit.
Right.
But as far as the staff, that's the hard part for me.
It is strange, like, and I know when we did it, once we got multiple locations too, it always amazed me how one bad person could destroy. You know, everybody talks about culture.
Yeah.
How quickly you get one bad fit, and all of a sudden, there's all this backstabbing, arguing. It's like, what the hell happened?
Right.
Like,
that one person, you can't let them in. And whenever they show that they're a cancer, you got to cut them out.
Right. Otherwise, it is like a cancer, and it starts spreading through.
Yeah.
And pretty soon you end up losing. Or worse, you placate somebody that is a bad fit and start losing good people. They're like, I'm not working here anymore. This isn't what they said it was going to be. So that's I used to be like really honed in on that. Like, wait a minute. Like,
I've left companies because of that. The first company I went over when I came independent, I worked under this company, and the staff, they were very mean. They weren't helpful. Right. You know? And then I brought it to attention. I'm like, hey,
I'm not a bad guy. Why are you treating me so bad?
And then I'm also like, hey, I'm your guy's top producer. Like, by me, but it wasn't just me saying it. It was a few different, and that really caused that company to lose some great people.
Yeah, and it happens quick.
It does.
So you got to really pay attention. It's like I always call it. Do you have the pulse of borrowing from the medical world, but do you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your company, and how quickly? Like I had one of my business people that I brought in. I was like, "What's going on?" And I had people that were with me over 10 years at that time, and finally I was like, "What's the deal here?" And they're like, "Well, when you're not here, they're a different person."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why didn't you come to me and tell me?" "Well, we were told not to." I was like, "Oh, all right, we got to make some changes here." Like, you always can come to me and
that's what I tell people. If there's ever a situation where it's becoming, if something's done differently when I'm not here. Right. I would like to know that. That way we can fix it.
Right. I need to know it.
Before you get so mad that you don't want to work here anymore.
Right. All of a sudden people are quitting. I was like, what the hell happened?
Right.
Like, oh, well, you didn't control. Well, I didn't even know. So
yeah. The problem is if you do know and then you continue to be blamed.
Right. Yeah. Then you deserve it.
Then it's just like, man,
I think it's as you grow, you get further and further removed. And it's one of the things in the growth of an entrepreneurial venture is once you get that, where you guys are going into that territory, you get up to like 50 plus people. All of a sudden there's just a delusion of how you started, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I started, it was just me. And then the first year, I think our first Christmas party was I had 4 employees. And so it was like 10 of us with spouses. So then so I knew everybody and, knew them, their kids, their spouses, what was going on, could interact with them every day and train them. And then as it started to grow, it was like, hang on. Like,
dude, now, good luck.
Yeah. Now
with you especially.
Yeah, we're at 250 employees. I walk into places and have to introduce myself to half the people.
I'm the guy on the side.
Yeah, I'm so-and-so. They're like, oh, we've heard about you.
Isn't that funny how that works, though?
Right.
Yeah. You need to put pictures like the president does in the government offices of yourself and all of your clinics.
I walked into one clinic and met the 2 receptionists that I'd never met. And they had a Build-A-Bear that they'd put a name badge on that was Tim. So, like, oh, well, you're here all the time. I was like, that's awesome. I love that.
That is pretty cool. That is cool.
A cool thing. So now all this is happening. How do you find fulfillment in, like, life? Like, I mean, obviously there's the pride of watching your company grow and become successful. Right. There's the battles, but how do you step back? Let me ask you this question. Do you celebrate wins?
So it's hard to celebrate wins with so many little kids. I got kids that range from 6 to 22. Right. So, but we've started doing it more. But I think it is important. You have a hard month and you have a hard challenge and you figure it out and you find the solution. Yeah, you have to celebrate those. Right. I'm not really doing that right now. I'm still in the focus. I'm still in that first 5-year phase. Right. And I figure after 5 years, because I'm still hiring people, looking for different positions to fill internally, that can free me up. Right. So right now, but we do go on vacation, right? We've created a life for ourselves that we want. Yeah. So that's awesome. But yeah, I do need to celebrate the wins more. Yeah. It dawned on me like just a few years ago that I never had. Like I would graduate. I have 4 degrees. I've never walked across the stage, never had a celebration of because it was on to the next thing. Most of the time it was like, hey, you're graduating. Like my first degree, I graduated from Montana State in March. It's quarter system, right? And they're like, well, ceremony's not till June. Well, I'm leaving to go to extended spring training, and I'm going to be with the team, so I'm not coming back. Graduated with my master's degree. It was the same thing. Like, hey, you want to hang out for 3 weeks to graduate? I'm like, no. I'm going home. I got to go get this. I got to go start making some money. I can't hang out here. Right. No, that is, and I think you just click because you find that solution to that problem. Right. and then you have to go to the next one.
Right. You just keep
Right?
moving.
You can't just stop. And it really is if we celebrate is at the end, right?
Yeah, I think there's that fear of like, is this it? And we had that conversation. Someday you'll have this with your staff where we had gotten to, I don't remember, 5 clinics, maybe 5 or 6 clinics. And I had my leadership team there and I was like, is this it? Are we done? Like, because if we are, I'm going to get bored really quick. And they said, no, we think, and it's where you're going to hit soon is like, all right, well, the only way we can do it is I need to start shifting more responsibility to you guys. So if are you where you need to be, or do we need to do some training, or how do we prepare you that then you can take part of this, which frees me up.
Right.
And unfortunately it worked. And then they didn't realize like, oh no, he keeps going. Like,
yeah.
So that's all. So with that, like, how do you, because success changes, right? Or our definition of success changes as we get going. Like we were talking about, when you look at numbers, like when you, like you said, oh man, if I could ever make 50 grand, that'd be awesome. Well, all of a sudden you're looking at a payroll that's
50 grand.
Yeah, more than that. Like, I mean, when we started hiring therapists, I'm like, and now a new therapist coming out of school makes 100 grand.
Yeah, I can only imagine what your payroll is right now.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah.
That's why I don't look at it. I just look at the last number and go, Ken, is there any money left? So
yeah,
because but the expense that comes with, and I'm thinking, there was a time where I thought I would never make that much money, and now we have 80 some therapists that make more than that.
Yeah.
It's like,
plus your support staff.
plus all this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is funny because and I think a lot of people think that it just came overnight, right?
Right.
Oh, you're lucky.
Right.
You know, you got hooked up with the right, whatever it might be. But it's like, you don't see every single month what's going out.
Right.
You know, you're only seeing what's coming in, but
Right.
what's coming in doesn't all stay home.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's that simple math people do, right? Like, I'm bringing in all this money, and I'm only getting
Yeah.
a percentage of it.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm making less of a
yeah,
percentage.
exactly.
So
This is razor thin, and I think it's when people go into business, they're always like, oh, I want the freedom, and I want to make money. It's like, well, neither of those are going to happen for a long time.
right.
You're going to be tied to this thing for a long time before you actually can free up. And it's one of the things with government that I always thought was, what, they should make it like the founders rule, like you own a business. You only get paid with whatever's left, right? That's the joy of being an entrepreneur. Like,
Yeah, but they can make more money.
yeah,
They can create more money.
yeah. No, that's the crazy part, though.
We're
is
running
like,
low. Let's start popping out some more Benjamin.
yeah, exactly. They can do that. But as a business owner, it's like, yeah, sometimes there's a lot left over. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But it's usually the other side where it's like,
And in those times where there is a lot, there's going to be times in the future when there's not a lot.
right.
Right. So
Yeah.
in real estate, we have seasons. So our buying season, it's going to be very hard to talk to me from April until, October.
Right.
But from October until April, that's our down season.
Right.
Right.
So you need to have enough money bank to
Right,
ride
right.
through. Yeah.
And so all the cool things that we do throughout the year to market the company, those bills continue to go forward where sometimes the profit doesn't support it,
Right. Yeah. It's just the joy or the trying to think through it all. And okay, are we set well enough? And I always think it's weird in the real estate world because all it takes is the feds to change interest rates, and it can slow everything down or accelerate. Because I know that was one of the things you were talking about was the refis coming, because all these people have been sitting and now values are up.
Values are up. Yeah, values are up. At this point, values are up. Inventory is low in Bakersfield,
Right.
meaning that we're below an average of what we should have for houses for sale.
Right.
So, over the past, we've been, I think, 1,000 days into a down market where the interest rates have continued to increase, and there's just really this week has given us some stability. Right. So what we've learned to rely on is the Treasury, the 10-year Treasury. Okay. So that's giving us a correlation between 1.5% to 2% of what the mortgage interest rates are on top. So right now, I think it's like at 4.35. I haven't checked it this morning because I had to find out how to get here. But
Google Maps, man.
I know. I was just blaming it on that. So yeah, I mean, the government, they could step in, but here's the problem if they do step in right now. Because we don't have any, I mean, it'd be great, right? I want interest rates to go lower. I want the people that have houses have the rates in the 7s, get a lower interest rate. But if the government does that right now, we still have not enough inventory.
Right. Yeah.
So what happens? So right now you have people waiting on the sidelines because some people still think that rates are going to go back down in the 2s and 3s, which I don't think is ever going to happen unless we have another sort of pandemic or, something huge that's going to affect the market. But
yeah, and that's not a short-term solution either, right?
No.
So in order to build houses,
they need to reduce the regulation on building houses. Right now, it's not profitable for builders to build a house for first-time buyers.
Right.
And so that's what happened too, is in 2008, 2007, builders stopped building. And so we have more millennials that are of home buyers. So you have the baby boomers, right, which was the largest born population in America. The next largest is the millennials. Right. So now the millennials are the largest population or generation ever born, and they're of age to buy. It's just
there's nothing to buy.
Well, there's things to buy, but the rates are higher, so the payment's higher too. So what they said is if the rates drop below 6% on the national average, it opens up the door to another 4 million home buyers, which is great. But
where's the 4 million?
But those 4 million are going to come in, and then they're going to start overbidding. So the house that's $350,000 now is going to go for $380,000, $390,000, $400,000, right? Right. So it's just going to make housing prices go up higher.
Yeah, that when we saw that weird run up, whenever it was, but
COVID.
Yeah, all of a sudden people were like offering 20,000 more than the asking price.
I thought it was the weirdest thing because we're in finance, right? And we deal with a lot of first-time buyers, and a lot of people have trouble coming in with the down payment and the closing costs. Right. But when COVID hit, everybody had like $30,000 to offer over cash. Right. So it was wild. That's whenever you saw house prices. I mean, they've increased over the past since COVID like 57%. So, or 2 years within the past 2 years of COVID, but people were offering $30,000 on a $300,000 house, offering $30,000 cash over the price. Doesn't matter what it appraises for. They're going to guarantee the $30,000 over. Right. They're not going to do a home inspection. They're going to waive all of their loan contingencies.
We're going to take a chance.
Give up their firstborn. It was crazy what was going on. And I always advise. I didn't have one client do that, but I had other people out there convincing their clients, this is the only way that you're going to be able to get the house is to put yourself in this horrible position, right? Because if you don't,
you want the house or not? This is what it's going to be.
Yeah, but if you don't do a home inspection, you're never going to know if the house ever had any significant damage to it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the appraiser, they'll look at the house, right? This house looks perfect. There's nothing that's going to cause any health or safety issues. But the home inspection, they're going to dig in. They're going to go in your attic. They're going to look for all the things that you tried to hide or things that you didn't even know were going on in your house while you're living there.
Right.
They let you know.
Yeah. And some of the stuff that gets done is like, I'd see it more on the commercial side, but I know what happens on the residential side. But some of the places I've rented over the years, or leased, you go in and it's like, what did they do?
Landlord special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it comes down to if HVAC's on me, not on the landlord, then I'll duct tape it.
Right.
You can put in a new condenser. It's $4,000, or you can jimmy rig something.
Yeah.
But then you don't know until the next person comes in. So if you didn't do that due diligence ahead of time, then the landlord's like, oh yeah, the AC works.
Mm-hmm. Take my word for it.
Yeah.
No.
But without checking it.
Right.
And pretty soon it's like, oh yeah, it's out.
And that,
Oh, that's your cost. That'll be 15,000 or 10,000.
Yeah.
What?
I just this AC guy. That's what we should look into. Getting AC, but that's my biggest fear of happening. Like this happening again. But again, I am for lower interest rates, but not too fast.
Right. So how you measure success changed?
I really haven't. I mean, every year we do a business plan. I get everybody together and we have, it's like a 15-page business plan of what we want our goals to be: personal, spiritual, and then financial, right? And so the coolest thing is that what I do every year, it's called the Life Will. And it has like 7 different items on there, and it's just everything's at the top of the page, but it's in a circle.
Right.
And so like if your family is on there, and then if you have a good family relation, or if you're good with your family, you mark at the top of the will, right?
Right.
And let's just say you have, your spirituality, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of in the middle. Right. And then you go into your financial, and it's like, okay, I'm 75% of where I want to be. So then once you start filling out the will, it's not going to be a perfect circle.
Right.
You're going to get
some
here
are
in
lower
business,
and some are,
and you're going to go here, and you're going to go here, and it looks like a weird type of, I don't know, draw. It's just a scribble. So the idea is to figure out throughout the year how to make that circle an actual circle.
That's awesome, because so you're looking at all areas, not just
with your spouse,
financial,
right?
Yeah, spouse, kids,
friends, family,
Yeah, I think that's an awesome way to approach it.
I'll send you a copy of one.
Yeah, that'd be
pretty cool.
No, that's really good. And I think that's an example of finding something that speaks to the culture you're trying to create too, right?
Right.
So it's not just like go, 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 sell, sell, sell.
No.
Like as many as you can get.
No, I'm bringing, so it's not make as much money as you can. It's like create the life that you want.
Right.
So I'm bringing in people. We bring in people that talk about, how to do we bring in CPAs at the beginning of the years, tell them, what their taxes, how to do their taxes. We'll bring in some financial planners throughout the year. It's, so showing them how to maximize their money. And I'm always talking to my people. It's like, hey, you bought a house, so now you got to buy a rental. Yeah.
Right.
Now you got to buy another. So
what's the next step? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a great way to approach it, because I think that's, at least from what I read, like the Gen Zs and even the millennials are like looking for that. Everybody talks about life balance or mental, but until you look at it holistically, you're never going to get it, right?
No.
Because the old days of like the baby boomers, where it's just work until you retire and then die soon after. I think people want more out of life than that.
You have to have more. You can't just be all work. One of the things, I was at a conference a couple years ago, and I was having an appetizer with this guy. He owns the largest mortgage company in America with the most loan officers. We ended up hanging out for a while, and then he waves these guys off, and I was like, what, you tell your friends they can leave? He's like, no, man, those are my pilots. I'm just telling them we're not going to fly out tonight. So then I'm like, okay, you're pretty up there.
Nice problem to have.
Right. He has
not tonight, guys.
Yacht parked in, Cabo, just
Exactly.
hanging. But I asked him, I said, hey, what do you do whenever it gets to the point to where your phone's ringing off the hook? You've put the people in the place, like with you, Tim, you put people in place, you have managers, you have CEOs, but your phone's still going to ring with problems.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes the phone's going to ring all the time. And I asked him, what do you do when that happens? And he looked at me straight in the face and he said, you got to keep grinding. He's like, I miss my kids' baseball games. I miss my kids' soccer games. I miss graduations. Right. And he said, my kids hate me. He's like, but I'm doing it not for them. I'm doing it for their children, right? Because he's trying to create generational wealth. Right. But with me, I'm just like, man, I can get it to a point where, you're not going to be able to go to every event, but dude, to miss a graduation, that'd be pretty big on my list. Right. I'd hold that forever. I'd still be mad at my parents if they didn't go to my graduation.
You weren't there. You weren't part of it.
So I think that's, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but I also don't want to miss opportunities too.
Yeah, no, I think it's finding that. That's really what life balance is, right?
Right.
And knowing that it's all areas. It was one of my original thoughts was how does it become that? And I think you're onto it early. It was later that I was like, wait a minute, because I know those people, right? You see the business people, especially it seems like the older ones, but might have a successful business, but their relationships with their kids are terrible, or their health is terrible, or they put all their time and effort into that one sliver of your wheel.
Right. Yeah.
And the rest of it's just falling apart.
Yeah.
Right?
They may have the circle in the middle, but that's not where you want the circle. You want the circle on the outside.
It might be a tiny circle. All right, cool. So the last thing I like to ask everybody is, like, if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, right? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self about what's coming ahead?
That's a hard question. I mean, because there's a lot of things, a lot of roads that I took where, I would tell myself, don't go down that road. Right. Don't go with this person. Don't believe in this person, right? But I would also tell myself, don't stop learning.
Right.
Never think you figured it out, because once you figure it out, you're too smart to ask anybody.
Right.
So, and then just keep going. Don't listen to your wife when she tells you to get a $50,000 a year job. And until the day I die, I'm still gonna bring it up to her.
Yeah.
On my deathbed, hey, remember we didn't get that job?
Yeah, maybe we should have done this.
Yeah. So,
because it creates problems later, right? Like,
and I think one of the big things too is aligning your people with your values. Mm-hmm. So, but the hard part is, whenever you're 18, you don't know all of your values yet. You're still trying to figure it out.
right.
So the sooner that you can figure out, okay, this is the guy I want to be, this is the direction I want to go in, this is the religion I want to believe in, go with people that are around that area. These are business owners, people I want to be around, like hang around those people.
Well, that's what they say, right? Like, look at your circle of friends, and you're probably an average of that circle.
Right.
And I think part of the growth thing, part of my big growth was joining like YPO early. And all of a sudden, I realized that compared to these guys, my business is microscopic, even though it was a pretty good size. But my shift was, I remember going and talking to my leadership team. I was like, all right, this is like 2005 or 6. I was like, all right, look, I'm no longer interested in running a physical therapy company. They were all like, oh my God, what are you talking about? I go, hang on. I want to run a great company that does physical therapy. So I'm going to stop paying attention to what the therapy world teaches about running a business. I'm going to pay attention to business people.
Yeah.
And that was a big shift, because all of a sudden it was like, now you start looking at things more systematic. You start looking at how can we continue to develop and grow. And the model for years, and still the model, is like have maybe 1 or 2 clinics, even in the chiropractic world, right? 1, but you get 2 and you're still one of the treating people at 1. You don't have time to go see what's going on in the other one, unless you figure a system out to know that the quality. And you're going to face it too, right? Like when you start getting additional locations, it's going to be like, I need to know the pulse of that one too.
Well, I remember when we first met at our first meeting, you had me write the playbook. You said, okay, if you were not to show up to work ever, how are people going to know what to do?
Right.
And so we're still making that playbook. It's been like a year. That
Right.
playbook's still changing.
It's going to change.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
But at least we have something now in place. Like,
Right.
And I like going back to the employees, but hey, did you check the manual?
Yeah. No, I think that's how you start looking at it systematically, and that's how you grow. Right?
Yeah.
And then, or identify what are the weak spots we really need to focus on and hone in on that. And do we have the right people in the right seats? Or I think as your business grows, it's like the brain running the body, right? If you don't have feedback coming back up to your brain, you have no idea what's going on. So there's 2 ways you can look at that, though. There's the founder's trap, where you get stuck wanting to be the solution to everything, or I need to back out of this so I can live the life I want to live, but still have the feedback I need to know when you've touched the hot stove, you need that.
Yeah,
okay.
You need someone to tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah, the feedback to go, that was hot. That I just got burned. I'm not doing that again. Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think your success is awesome, and it's funny how the competitors start coming, right? And that was actually one of the reasons I started my second clinic. I had the advice of, no, grow just a bigger clinic. And my fear was, but if I have one, my competitors, now that I'm making noise, could come around and surround me and cut off my flow of people.
Or try to take your people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we hear about that all the time in the groups, right? Like,
Yeah.
employee leaves and all of a sudden decides to go against you and then starts taking your people. Mm-hmm. But I think you're on the gold of the better you treat your people, the less likely they are to.
Right.
Like the old days of the yelling, screaming managers and.
Man, I've heard stories, especially in real estate, because we got 30-day transactions. If you got hit, I've heard people throwing chairs, people get into fights. I don't want that. I don't want my business to represent that at all.
No, yeah, or you going in as the boss and just berating somebody in front of everybody just to put them down. It's like, that's a bad. Everybody else is like, I'm not sure I want to be here.
We don't want that. We don't want that at all.
And I think it's just the other part of it's like paying attention to society and like, when is it like, hey, we need to shift a little bit here. We're going to end up in a bad spot. Right?
Yeah.
Just so your people know that you're not like, it's no longer the 1950s where you berate people and smack people. And
no, it's still going on, man.
Yeah, it's still going on. Yeah,
they're still happening.
Yeah,
just not over here.
Yeah. Well, that's it, right? Just keep that out.
Right.
Keep that mess somewhere else. Don't bring that mess in my house. Right. So, awesome. Well, congratulations on your success. I look forward to continuing to see this go and watch you grow and watch you lose your hair and turn gray.
Yeah. I'm gonna stay fit though.
Okay.
That's one thing that's gonna stay.
All right, keep that going. But awesome. Well, thank you.
Tim?
And we will.
Yeah,
I will see you soon. Appreciate it.
All right.